The U.S.-China trade war rages on, while Hong Kong erupts in protests. Will this become the next battleground between China and the U.S.? Hi, welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell, coming to you from Hong Kong. If you watch our other channel, China Uncensored, you know 2 weeks ago we took an unexpected journey here. We're here covering massive protests against an extradition bill that would let the Hong Kong government send people from Hong Kong to China for trial. But what's happening in Hong Kong affects the U.S. too. And not just because the Chinese Communist Party likes to blame foreign forces for causing trouble in Hong Kong, especially the CIA, which is clearly made up of white guys in t-shirts. Back to the actual U.S. government. The Trump administration has been cranking up economic pressure on China with massive tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars of Chinese goods. But that doesn't include Hong Kong. Under the 1992 Hong Kong Policy Act, Hong Kong is treated as a separate territory in economic and trade matters. See, even though Hong Kong belongs to the People's Republic of China, it has its own semi-independent government, which means the U.S. and U.S. businesses can trade and operate here under actual rule of law. In 2017, the U.S. was Hong Kong's second largest trading partner, worth about $69 billion. However, according to the U.S.'s Hong Kong Policy Act, if the president determines that Hong Kong is not sufficiently autonomous, that can all change. And the thing is, it's looking like Hong Kong is becoming less and less autonomous. Hong Kong used to be a British colony, but in 1984, China and the United Kingdom signed the Sino-British Joint Declaration. It said that in 1997, the British would give Hong Kong to China, but only under a one-country, two-systems policy, where Hong Kong gets to keep a lot of the freedoms it had under British rule, freedoms unavailable in the rest of China. But that never really sat well with the Chinese Communist Party, which is why they've been eroding the two systems part. Democratically elected pro-democracy legislators have been disqualified by pro-Beijing factions. Foreign journalists have been banned from the city, and pro-Beijing lawmakers have been pushing a law that would punish making fun of China's national anthem with prison time. And recently, the final blow, an extradition bill that would allow authorities to arrest people in Hong Kong and send them to mainland China for trial. And Chinese courts are so good, they pretty much convict everyone, whether they committed a crime or not. The Sino-British Joint Declaration has no meaning anymore, according to the Chinese Foreign Ministry. That led many to believe it was the end of Hong Kong's independence from the rest of China. But in a surprise show of force, a couple weeks ago, 1 million Hong Kongers took to the streets to protest that extradition bill. And after police cracked down hard on a protest just a few days later, there was an even bigger protest. This time, 2 million people in a city of 7 million. They took to the streets calling for the bill to be completely scrapped and for Hong Kong's chief executive, Carrie to resign. Lam has postponed the bill, but that's not enough for protesters. So what has been the international response to the Chinese Communist Party attempts to take over Hong Kong? The U.S. government is calling into question Hong Kong's special trade and economic status.
The United States expresses its grave concern about the Hong Kong government's proposed amendments. The continued erosion of the one country, two systems framework puts at risk Hong Kong's long-established special status in international affairs.
Republican Senator Ted Cruz tweeted, "We can no longer allow the party to exploit Hong Kong's special treatment." And Ted Cruz joined Democratic Senator Ed Markey to introduce bipartisan legislation that would require the Secretary of State to produce a report on how mainland China uses Hong Kong to circumvent U.S. export controls, customs duties and sanctions, as well as conduct espionage and influence operations. According to Ted Cruz, the Chinese regime has long exploited Hong Kong's special legal treatment under U.S. law. It uses Hong Kong's open economy to launder money, evade tariffs, break sanctions, and acquire sensitive intellectual property. Meanwhile, members of the U.S. Congressional Executive Commission on China, led by Democratic Congressman Jim McGovern and Republican Senator Marco Rubio, introduced a measure that would require the U.S. Secretary of State to certify every year that Hong Kong remains autonomous from mainland China. That bill is called the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act. It proves once again that China can truly be a bipartisan issue. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is backing the bill, and she's calling on President Trump to bring up the Hong Kong situation with Chinese leader Xi Jinping later this week at the G20 summit in Japan. Hong Kong is the only place in China where people can freely protest against the Chinese Communist Party. When the US makes it clear they're watching Hong Kong, that puts pressure on the Chinese regime. This could fit in with the US government's changing strategy toward China. The US and China are in the middle of a trade war. But this is about more than just fair trade or intellectual property theft. It's a fundamental shift in how the US government engages with the Chinese Communist Party, what's now being called strategic competition. Basically, the US has realized that panda bears aren't always cuddly. So what do you think? Leave your comments below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for joining me here in Hong Kong on this episode of America Uncovered.